Alright guys, let's jump right into it. The Galaxy Note 10 Plus versus the S23 Ultra in 2024, this late 2024. I've gotten this question a lot. There's a lot of people still holding on to the Note 10 Plus. It's still a pretty impressive phone, even though, you know, it's not getting any more software updates and stuff like that. So you do have quite a few people who are looking to, you know, finally upgrade now, especially since the price has come down a little bit on the S23 Ultra here. And it makes a lot of sense because I was, you know, saying that this is still one of the best phones you could buy simply because it's a lot cheaper than the S24 Ultra, and it's pretty much exactly the same for the most part here. Now, you are going to be losing, you know, one essential feature with the Note 10 Plus, which is going to be the SD card support. So that's going to be the biggest thing here with the hardware. But let's go ahead and just, you know, talk about that. So hardware wise, they're kind of similar in terms of how they're shaped. I do think the Note 10 Plus is slightly a little bit more comfortable. It's not as sharp, especially on the edge. But it is a, you know, it still has that boxy design here. But the S23 is just super sharp. You know, just a very boxy phone, right? But you do have kind of like a little bit of, if you guys can see that, it just feels a lot more comfortable to me, the Note 10 Plus, even though they're, you know, kind of have that boxy shape. As far as the S Pen goes, you do have a more accurate S Pen on the S23 Ultra. So if you do digital artwork, you should notice the latency being really good on the S23 here. It feels pretty much close to instant. If you're really like kind of drawing and doing stuff like that, it feels really nice. So the S Pen is still, you know, kind of the same on the S10 Plus. If you don't really do digital artwork, you really won't notice too much of a difference, honestly. And I always really like the blue pen here, but essentially the same. And the Note doesn't feel slow or anything like that. But you can definitely tell like that slight difference with the pen. As far as the hardware goes, again, the SD card support is the biggest difference here. Of course, you get the design upgrade here for the most part here. The Aura Glow color is still a very cool looking color here when you put it towards the light. It's a very cool to look at. Besides that, that's pretty much it. The cameras are obviously bigger, which we will talk about. They're both IP68 dust and water resistant as well. Alright, so there's a few different things with the display here. So they both curved displays and they both have a 6.8 inch display size here. What you will notice here is that the S23 isn't as curved as the Note 10 Plus, and also colors kind of look the same for the most part. I think the S23 actually looks just a little bit more colorful. You do have on both of these phones a 1440p resolution. They both have pretty high PPI, around the close to the 500 pretty much. And then you also do have, you know, dynamic AMOLED, HDR10 Plus on both of these. The biggest difference is going to be this max brightness at 1750 nits on the S23. So it's much brighter in direct sunlight. And then also your 120 hertz is going to really feel like the upgrade. Besides that, they both look pretty much the same. They both look really good still. The Note 10 Plus doesn't really look bad at all compared to the S23. And yeah, I think the biggest difference here is going to be the 120 hertz versus the 60 hertz display. It's the thing that will pop out to you the first thing if you do upgrade. It just, you know, you'll probably never really want to go back to 60 hertz after you do 120 hertz. But besides that, I mean, the Note 10 Plus display is impressively, you know, excellent in 2024. It looks really good. It's not like it's really a slow 60 hertz either. So yeah, so that's basically my thoughts. It's just basically you get 120 hertz and a higher max brightness. So the speed difference here is pretty interesting, but not really, because the Note 10 Plus is still pretty fast, even though you can see it just completely has a much better benchmark score on the S23. What I would say about the speed is, yeah, it's gonna be a lot smoother, I guess, because of the 120 hertz. But I wouldn't say necessarily like app loading animations are bad on the Note 10 Plus here. Like maybe you might notice more little kind of like animation glitches and stuff like that on the Note 10 Plus now. But for the most part, you can see it's still pretty smooth. The Snapdragon 855 chipset on here. So we have the 8 Gen 2 and then we have the 855. This has 256 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM. In the Note 10 Plus, This is a 256 gig and actually 12 gigs of RAM on the base model, which I always thought was, you know, pretty cool that they did that. But let's go ahead and talk about the animations here. Let's see if we can actually like spot a difference with animations, because this is running a much older version of Android 12. And what's funny is it looks completely identical to Android 14 here. Let's see. So you guys can see not really that big of a difference here. And it's not the Note 10 Plus doesn't really feel slow at all. Even if we animation wise, it's really not that slow. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, so again, the thing that will pop out the most is not necessarily speed, it's more of the 120 hertz. Let's talk about the overall gaming experience here. This is actually an upgrade that you will notice here. Again, because of the 120 hertz, the extra power that you get. You can play PUBG at 120 frames, you can play Fortnite really fast frames, Call of Duty. But this only matters if you are a competitive gamer, because the Note 10 Plus is still a very fast phone. Even playing, you know, PUBG or whatever, most games in the Play Store, it can still do a pretty good job, considering that, you know, it's a much older phone here. And I believe we should still be able to play at 60 frames on here. Yeah, we can still play at 60 frames here on HDR Extreme, and it's still, you know, pretty smooth for the most part. It doesn't feel slow or anything like that. So yeah, if you're a casual gamer and you're like, I don't really play games like that, I don't really care, you won't really notice, you know, too much of a difference here, because this is still a very good, you know, gaming phone as far as casually playing Subway Surf, Call of Duty. You're not going to really notice a difference. But if you are competitive, you're going to want those higher frame rates, then it makes more sense, right, to upgrade. So we got both speakers at max volume. We'll start with the Note. So you guys can hear a much better bass on the S23. The Note still sounds decent, but a much better speaker overall on the S23. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the camera. So this is probably one of the biggest, you know, questions that I get asked. What are the camera upgrades? Is it really worth it? Surprisingly, the Note still takes good shots, but you definitely are getting a big upgrade in zoom photography. So on the S23, we have a 200 megapixel standard, a 10 megapixel telephoto, 3 times optical, and then we also have a periscope telephoto with 10 times optical, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 8K 24 and 30 video with a 12 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60, and then we also have that 100 times zoom on here. Now with the Note, we do have a 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, 2 times optical, and then we also have a 16 megapixel ultra wide, a 0.3 depth sensor, and then we have 4K 60 video, and then a 10 megapixel selfie that does 4K 60 as well, and then this goes up to 10 times zoom. So check out these side-by-side stills and video. Let me know what you guys think. Alright, so let's discuss battery life here. This is also a pretty big upgrade in my opinion. The battery life is a lot better on the S23. Even if you had a new battery on the Note 10 Plus, this would still have much better battery life. So the Note 10 Plus, I can still get pretty good battery life out of this phone. Because I charge my phones to 80%, so the battery health is not completely like shot on this phone. But just in general, the standby time is going to be better on the S23. Overall screen on time is going to be better, especially for gaming. So I do like the battery life. What's pretty interesting is that the charging speeds have not really changed on these devices. So you have 45 watt charging on both, and you have a 5,000 milliamp versus a 4,300 milliamp hour battery. You do have your wireless and reverse wireless charging still on board. So if battery life is important to you, I actually think this is a good upgrade. Unlike like if you were going from a Note 10 Plus to an S22 Ultra, it wouldn't be a good upgrade in my opinion. But this is actually a good upgrade. So be sure to let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.